First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Lecha Kodesh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And I got a few headlines here, mainly some events that were transpiring today. Now, there's reports that apparently Iran attacked UAE, and so now UAE is threatening retaliation, along with speculation of the ceasefire, possibly being over or ended.
Which is a false flag. They wanted to resume it under a new name.
To attack again. And in one of the other headlines I have on here, you'll see why it all makes sense, the timing of it all. So let's read a little bit of this here. It says, ceasefire over. U.S. mum as UAE, Israel prepared military response after fresh Iranian cross-Gulf missile attack. Fajira. Now, I haven't seen, any reports from Iran, or whether confirming or denying that they were behind the attack. But once again, that's just me. Maybe I haven't seen it. Maybe they have put something out. But it's once again, the timing is interesting. And with a matter as sensitive as this, it just doesn't make sense, right? It just doesn't make sense. And what I mean by that is, it wouldn't make sense for the U.S. or really in particular Israel to just say, okay, we're okay with a ceasefire and then an ending to the war, and then we'll call it a day. Because if you look at what has actually transpired since they attacked Iran, all the things they really said they wanted to do, they wouldn't be able to gain as much as they really wanted to do, right? Because if peace is what you wanted, then you shouldn't have bombed them in the first place. But you go and bomb them, you cause all this turmoil, this global turmoil, energy crisis, and so on. You say you don't want them to have a nuclear weapon and blah, blah, blah. And that you want their uranium, you want their oil, and you want complete control over the Strait. And then you turn around and say, okay, now they're willing to make a deal, so we're good now. No, it doesn't work that way, because then they still have the uranium. They still have control over the Strait. Yeah, they've implemented a blockade, but that's on the stance of conflict, right? It's like, well, if you attack me, I'll attack you. So that's not total control over the Strait. And Israel is definitely not okay with this, because Yahoo knows exactly where he's going. should true peace be instituted. Okay, so let's read the summary here. It says, Fujairah says 3 injured in Iranian attack on oil industry zone. UAE confirms air defenses are now dealing with a missile threat. We have gotten reports of explosions in Dubai, which has sent oil higher, and M&E futures into the red. UAE threatens retaliation. Now, what's also interesting about this, which I wouldn't put it past, the Esau, right, is to set something up and then blame it on Iran. And they've done that in the past. Okay, they've done that.
Known as false flags.
So it's definitely nothing new. CENTCOM hails 2 U.S. merchant ships exiting Hormuz Strait safely in first step. Besson issues remarks warning the U.S. will fire if fired upon. Iran insists Hormuz is under its control and says it targeted and struck a U.S. Navy vessel, which the Pentagon/Central Command has denied. So Iran says, no, we attacked, we hit one of your vessels. The Pentagon says, nope, that's not what happened. That didn't happen. Oh, man. Trump announced Sunday the U.S. will help free up, quote-unquote, ships, or quote, help free up ships stuck in Hormuz Strait through Project Freedom. A lot of projects, huh? Iran has, in a response, issued a redefined control zone in the Strait. Cool. So now let's read a little bit here, some more details on this actual ceasefire breaking here. There remain lingering questions over whether the U.S.-Iran ceasefire has definitively broken down with today's Iranian attack on the UAE. And remember, Trump was just recently briefed on his options, you could say, on Iran, and I did a lesson on that, on the kind of things that they were actually advising him on, and using hypersonic missiles and different forms of sort of like a large-scale attack on them and then call it a day. But that's like going and grabbing a dog's ears and then thinking that, okay, that's it, now we're good now. The dog's just going to sit there and look at you and say, okay, now we're good. Where are we at? Yeah, it says, as well as tit-for-tat hostilities in the Persian Gulf area. This, as Israeli media says, the Netanyahu government is awaiting a green light to attack Iran again. Now, you notice, in the public eye, right, in the public view, they had to take this stance, right? They have to sort of make it look like the U.S. is leading it, Israel is following suit. Israel, if Trump says don't attack, then they're not going to attack, and if they get the green light, then they're going to go ahead and attack. And remember, there was a lot of talk, right, a lot of publicity around Israel controlling the U.S., and then Trump came out and basically, he had to make a public statement about it. Yahoo, BB basically came out and he also said, oh, you think anybody can control Trump? And That's all to sort of throw you off and make you believe the opposite. So and they phrase it in such a way that no, yeah, Netanyahu's government is awaiting a green light, as if they're not the ones behind the scenes, as if it's not in reverse, right? Also, the UAE is now planning a severe retaliatory response and harsh revenge against Iran, per MS Now. So say this should go ahead, right? They do go ahead and they do this. Then you're back to square one, saying that loosely because it might even be worse than square one, right? And so the when they have those ceasefires and all these things, it just keeps things going, right? It prolongs the time. But right now, gas is still going up. I remember I went to the gas station, it was $4.09, and 3 days later it was $4.35. That's with cash, and $4.45 without cash, regular with the card or whatever. So it's going up. All right, all this time, even when there's a ceasefire institute, it's going up, and eventually it goes from, well, where can I buy the cheapest gas to where can I just even buy gas at all? And when certain states start running out of gas, you're going to start to see that it's not going to be looking too good. Now, as it stands right now, it's already not looking too good. Okay, and this guy is realizing, yo, what happened to 4 to 6 weeks? You can't just run away from this. They're trying to find a way to try and wrap it up nicely, but it's not going that way. You see, and it's not looking too good for Trump's numbers either. Where are we at? It says, yet strangely, the latest statement out of CENTCOM doesn't touch on the question of a broken ceasefire, and President Trump himself has been silent on the matter, per AP. Cooper declined to say whether the exchange of hostilities between U.S. and Iranian forces in the Strait of Hormuz today amounted to an end of the ceasefire agreement. Cooper told reporters in a phone call this afternoon that Iran initiated aggressive behavior in the Strait. According to a readout of the call provided by the Associated Press, what we saw this morning was Iran initiating aggressive behaviors, Cooper said. We are simply going to respond to that. So this is what you have going on in the this whole ceasefire situation, which we knew that it's just a matter of time, right? You're not gonna ceasefire your way out of prophecy. That's not gonna happen. And this is also a headline. This also came out today, a little after this article was published. It says Israel, Hoyam citing sources, the U.S. and Israel are weighing strikes on Iranian missile launchers and energy facility in retaliation for the Iranian attack on the UAE. So, and that's the thing. That's how tit for tat works, right? Once somebody does something, the other side has to respond. That's how it goes. So you hit me, I hit you back. I'm hitting you back because you hit me first. And then the one who hit you first is saying, well, now you hit me, so now I'm going to hit you. And then it's just a whole, you hit me, I hit you, you hit me, I hit you. Now, this is also an interesting thing here we're seeing, and I'll explain more as to why this is interesting, right? So Trump disapproval rate hits career high. War and rising costs take toll. Yes, this is not just gas prices going up, right? But this is going to affect. It's already affecting other sectors, even manufacturing, right? Lately, like the release of the new iPhone 17 that came out, it's pretty much been like super scarce, right? Not super scarce, but like it's very difficult to even get it because it's selling out so fast. But sometimes people just think of it as, well, it's selling out so fast because it's a new thing, everybody wants it. Yes, okay, that's there. That usually happens with a lot of things. But the rate at which it's going, it's actually because of this whole energy crisis, war that's going on, because that's also affecting manufacturing, okay, shipping and all of that. So less and less is able to get out because now it's if you can even get your shipments at all, the price is going to go up. Okay, the price is going to go up because the entire process of making it. Remember that sometimes you pick up an object, you take the phone, right? You look at the phone, you're like, okay, well, the things you need to make the phone itself, the materials that it's made of, okay, maybe you can manage that. But what about the factories that you make it at? What about the materials that you need to keep those factories running? What about all of those other external factors that play a role? When those are affected, this is also affected. You may have ingredients. You may go to the grocery store, buy all the ingredients you need. You're like, okay, I can make dinner. But you can't make dinner without a stove, without a sink, without a kitchen. And you may have all of those, but if you don't have any electricity in your house, how are you going to do that? So it's like it's not just the main core of whatever it is you're using. It's about what it's connected to, and when those systems or chains are broken, how that eventually links up and affects you. So going back here, it says though tempered by the prospect of additional GOP gerrymandering of the House district in the wake of a pivotal Supreme Court decision, Democrats' hopes for a rout of Republicans in the approaching midterm elections are rising after a Washington Post, ABC News, which is called poll, found that President Trump's disapproval rating is now the highest of either of his 2 terms in office. Now, remember how eager people were to vote in Biden. And it wasn't because they love Biden's policies. He didn't come and do shit. It was because they wanted Trump out of there so badly. And now they're saying his disapproval ratings are now higher than even then. Trump's decision to launch a war on Iran is taking a toll. People are seeing it, people are feeling it, and their pockets are getting hurt. Voters are not only dismayed by his handling of Iran, but also dissatisfied with his work on the economy, which is itself being harmed by the war. There's a different, the difference in the levels of anger that people have varies. When you don't promise anything, and you come and mess shit up, yes, people get pissed. They say things were fine before this guy got here. But when you promise something, and you come and do the opposite and then mess things up, they get even more angry. They get more angry because not only are you messing things up, but they got their hopes up. And now they feel deceived. And now what they were looking forward to, making plans on, and all that is gone. Opposite, down the drain. And then they keep hearing you coming out and telling them the same BS rhetoric that they've been hearing for the past couple months. But you're saying one thing and everything, the opposite is happening. So now they don't even want to hear it anymore. It says here, in a survey of U.S. adults taken in the last week of April, 62% said they disapprove of his general performance in the Oval Office. A whopping 76% disapprove of his handling of the cost of living, and 66% disapprove of what he's done with Iran. A majority of Americans surveyed expressed disapproval of his handling of every issue covered by the survey. So now, what's going to happen here when you're losing, if you haven't already, lost the trust of the people, even some of those that voted for you in your MAGA base. And now midterm elections are coming up, and it's not looking like it's going to be good for you. Well, on a similar note, you have here Israeli Channel 12, Israeli Army, and I did a lesson on this not too long ago about why they needed to start this war back up because of this guy's court case. So Israeli Army and Mossad are recommending to the political level to resume the war against Iran. Netanyahu will not testify in court tomorrow due to the escalation of the situation in the Middle East. In wartime, that's why his case has been prolonged for so long. In wartime, things are handled differently. So they can hide behind that fact of we're in a state of emergency.
Look at Zelensky.
So sort of operate in that mode until all of this is done.
Trump will do the same thing,
addressing things as they were before. So when you go back to this guy Trump here, eventually when they start to see that, yeah, it doesn't look like you're going to be able to get these people, to vote for your side. And if this election does go down, then it's not going to look too good for you. They're going to start thinking, if they haven't already, about how can you either one, do something similar to what is being recommended over here in the next headline by the Mossad, right? To say, you know what, call off the elections, right? Or we're in such a state of emergency, like we can't even go ahead and
there it is.
Vote. Or something just happened and now we got to blah, 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 shut all this down. We got to keep things as they are until it's resolved. Eventually, that's the kind of direction you start to have to head in because you're like, yo, if I can't win it through people actually voting for me, then I got to use another means. Because once the Democrats get up in there was even talk about them impeaching him. So once they get up in there, he knows that it's going to be a much more different. It's going to look much different, than it did the past year or so that he's been in office. So they know that with his disapproval rating going up and things not getting better for people, and they're starting to see through the BS and the lies, a lot of people are looking to, go vote the opposite way. And this guy, he cares about that. Now, there's another part in here I wanted to just highlight. It says Trump also scored terribly on some personal attributes. For example, 71% said the descriptors honest and trustworthy are not applicable to Trump. Now, you wonder why 71% of people will say that. It's not like he came out and he comes out and says A and it's not even B, C, D, or E. It's not even close. It's not even in the alphabet. But he'll come and tell you it's A. We're doing this, we're doing that. The gas prices are not going to go up, and then boom. Oh, they're going to come down quick. Boom. It's not happening. So people are seeing it. They're like, yo, you're saying one thing, you're not doing it. You're saying another thing, the opposite is happening. You can't trust the words that come out of his mouth. 71% of people, and this is going to go up as people start to get more and more frustrated.
Yep, it's Trump shit.
While 67% said Trump does not carefully consider important decisions. Oh, I'm going to come and stop wars, not start them. And now you just went and started one of the biggest ones. That's what it's going to be. Meanwhile, 51% says he lacks the mental sharpness required for his position. So it ain't looking too good for DJ Trump. And he's going to have to do something. Okay? He's going to have to do something. Just like the Israeli Army and the Mossad are recommending that something be done here, in particular, resuming the war for Bibi's sake. This is Matthew chapter 24, verse 6. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. And that's the part to highlight right there, right? Wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. And when we look into that word rumors over here, this is why you hear the back and forth, you hear the rhetoric on this side and then that side, and then one side says, yeah, if you cross and come over here, we're going to do this, and then that's going to lead to that. And then the other side says, oh, we're going to blow them off the face of the earth. Oh, we're going to destroy a whole civilization, knowing what that's going to mean for that, in terms of destabilization for that region. So here in the rumors, it says hearsay, report, or rumor. And that's what you're hearing, right, on both sides. This side has done this. Oh, that means that this is happening. Or this side has done that. And it's from the side of Iran, it's from the side of the U.S., it's from the side of Israel, and so on and so forth. But these things we're seeing right now in itself is also fulfilling prophecy. And Yahushua said, all these are the beginning of sorrows. Interesting enough, right? He also mentioned in verse 7, nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom, famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. And farmers have been warning for a long time, which is getting worse with the whole fertilizer shortage due to this very same war that's going on in the Middle East. So a lot is happening, but the situation is always fluid. So you got to follow it. And as Yahushua said, we got to watch as well as pray. But you got to watch, okay? Always stay upon your watch, because yesterday could be, in terms of, the temperature of prophecy, yesterday could have been, 30 degrees, and then today is 120 degrees. And you're like, what just happened? So you got to always be on watch, because what seems like it's cold can quickly turn very hot. Anyway, with that, I'm going to end it here. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Ruchak, Udash. Until next time, Shalom.
And so that leads us to here today, right? Ceasefire over, right? Well, if you called it a ceasefire, because they got to move a lot of stuff over there, and they have to have a false flag to resume it, but they got to call it something else, man. We can't call it Operation Epstein Theory, because then I got to answer to Congress. So I got to call it a new name, right? Because that other has expired. You heard them try to do that shit in the previous video, right? EU targets VPNs and EU age verification push, and that is pretty much a VPN keeps you kind of anonymous, to look at certain sites without having to go through the bullshit, of Real ID, etc., except they don't call it Real ID over there, but they do call it, and you've heard a lot about voter ID over here, everything's about Real ID over here, and then you got digital ID over there. But they're the same thing. Brussels wants to close the VPN loophole, even as it insists the official age verification app remains mere suggestion. So they're looking to get rid of VPNs altogether. Brussels has a problem with people trying to stay anonymous, and now it's eyeing the tools they use to do it. Asked how Brussels intends to stop age checks with a VPN, she said it's an important part of the next steps to look at, that it should be circumvented. So they really just don't want VPNs anymore. The VPN comment surfaced at a press conference about the Commission's broader regulatory squeeze. Brussels provisionally found the Digital Services Act, see that's the other big one, by failing to keep under 13s off. They say it's for the children. Yeah, but you got these pedophiles in power anyways. Yeah, the pedophiles run everything, so yeah, explain that one, right? But, they're hypocrites. Trump's killing spree isn't just stopping the flow of drugs in the U.S. They claim that they're going after narco-terrorists, right? Trump administration falsely claims that, terror strikes against boats target fentanyl and have halted 97% of cocaine shipments to the U.S. Total Trump shit. And it's Hague shit, too. Pentagon claims that attacks on civilian boats in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific severely curtailed the import of illegal drugs. Bullshit. It's Trump shit. It's Hague shit. Administration failed to explain the long-term objectives of this mission or provide any evidence of reduced drug flows. I would ask for a credible answer for this most fundamental question. What is the operation actually meant to accomplish? Under Operation Southern Spear, the U.S. military conducted 54 terror attacks against drug boats, what they call drug boats, which ain't even that, killing more than 185 civilians since September. Latest strike on the 26th of April in the Pacific killed 3 people. Trump administration claims its victims are members of at least 24 or more cartels. So there we go. But they claim to be at war, but refuses to name. Oh, but so you don't even have a name for him. Have not seen any evidence that fentanyl has ever been smuggled from South America to the U.S. So, you know, it's Hague shit and Trump shit. And Barack Obama recently went on public to say this. King Bibi pushed for war against Iran using same arguments President Trump. So he already knows that Trump is controlled by King Bibi, which many already know this. You know, so he's just stating the obvious, you know. Not that he wasn't controlled, but he was less controlled than others because he made a P5+1 deal with Iran and kind of kept the war down when he was in power, even though he launched a total war against Syria and Libya, you know, and really got that all started. Yet at the same time, though, he was actually making better deals with Iran than President Trump. Because remember, when President Trump came in, he totally squashed the deal that Obama had. Obama said Israeli Prime Minister repeatedly tried to persuade him to launch a full-scale armed confrontation with Iran. That's when Obama was president. In an interview published on Monday in New Yorker, Obama said King Bibi used the same arguments and justifications that he later presented to President Trump. He's saying, yep, King Bibi did the same thing to him, but he didn't capitulate with King Bibi. Oh, no wonder why Trump got in, because Trump didn't do what he wanted. You got to remember, he launched a total war against Gaza in 2014. You know, and that was just 2 years before, you know, Obama's second term ended. You know, so they needed somebody in there that would carry out King Bibi's wishes. What did Trump do in the first term? He ended the P5+1 that Obama got going during 2014. Even though Obama did everything that they wanted with Syria, that still wasn't good enough. See, they're never satisfied, right? These Israelis, Mossad, wasn't satisfied with him. So it's interesting that he's come out, you know, and said, look, that's the same thing that they presented me with. D.C. judge apologized to alleged Trump assassin, you know. So we got this hoax, you know, but, you know, the bullshit, right? Federal magistrate judge in D.C. come under fire, expressed deep concern described by multiple outlets as an apology over the custody conditions of Cole Thomas Allen, the 31-year-old accused of attempting to assassinate President Trump at the association did on the 25th of April. Totally a hoax. But we'll look at this bullshit report.
The suspect in the White House correspondence dinner.
So we know it's Trump shit.
The hearing has just wrapped, we are told, and at one point the judge apologized to Cole. Washington correspondent Mike Emanuel is right outside the courthouse to answer why that possibly was. Mike?
Yes, Andrew, good afternoon to you. Judge Zia Faraqui apologized to suspect Cole Allen for the treatment he's received so far while he's been behind bars. He's been put on suicide watch by the Department of Corrections, and the judge was asking why. An attorney for the government said that he was put on suicide watch because he told FBI agents the night of the White House Correspondents' Dinner
looks like Seth Rollins
that he didn't expect to survive, and his language suggested that he really was not expecting to survive his trip to Washington, D.C., and the ultimate incident where he allegedly showed up.
Of course, like everything else, total bullshit as this video goes in. Wait, no, it's Trump shit. You know, because his approval ratings are so low, you know. And as Stu Peters calls it out, it's a hoax. The whole thing's a hoax. And he'll be the first to let you know that it's all scripted, it's all fake. And, you know, you can see bullshit a mile away. You can see Trump shit, you can see Hague shit. And then you just got the lying media that's been lying for a very long time. See, his spells are wearing off and we're able to see clearly now. Because the Most High has given us eyesight, and guess what? Because our eyes are open, the rest of the world's eyes are open for that matter. Because we the prophets have been speaking for a long time. Yes, the Most High has been exposing Esau through his servants, the prophets.
All right, I think we're ready to go here. So, busy day for you, packed Monday. It was a busy weekend. It was a weird, kind of bizarre, strange feeling news weekend. A lot of these stories, of course, are planted. They're not organic in any way. They are not authentic. They're astroturf. They're fake and gay. They're part of the Hollywood script that is the entertainment arm of the military-industrial complex, which is politics. And it involves the war machine, and it involves, you know, civilization-ending weapons potentially that could obviously lead to catastrophic ends. And these people are crazy. They're psychopaths. And they are allegedly, I guess, in possession of and in control of these civilization-ending weapons. And now they're using language that suggests that they are willing to use civilization-ending weapons in this unjust, illegal war being waged against Iran for Israel. I mean, that's fact. That's objective. This war is being waged for Israel. Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, has admitted that. Marco Rubio has admitted that. Donald Trump and various members of Donald Trump's cabinet have all admitted, Pete Hegseth has admitted, that this war is being waged for Israel. They've all given different variations of why it's being waged for Israel. You know, to liberate the Iranian people, to save the protesters that were being murdered by, you know, an oppressive regime that aimed to have nuclear weapons, despite the fact that there is a religious fatwa against the production of those weapons, or at least there was. For 47 years, Iran has been 2 weeks away from obtaining nuclear capabilities and then using them against America, despite the fact that they don't have intercontinental ballistic delivery systems that are capable of reaching the United States. But these have been some of the justifications for this war. Marco Rubio said, well, if we didn't strike Iran, Iran would have wiped Israel off the map. Okay, and what? And what? And so at the center of all of these weird and bizarre, intentionally placed astroturf, fake and gay news stories, these propaganda pieces that are being planted in the media, again, to condition you, to program you with being okay with $7 a gallon fuel, you know, $10 a gallon diesel. Entire airlines are shutting down. Spirit called it quits. Delta is canceling without explanation hundreds of flights. We'll get to that this evening as well, but at the center of all of these things is America's relationship with Israel. That's at the center of all of this. The conquest of greater Israel is at the center of all of this. That is the stated goal. Those are the ambitions of the Talmudic, expansionist, Eastern European Israelis, as they love to call themselves. That's what they want to do. And so at the center of all of this, we have the White House Correspondents' Dinner, we have the murder of Charlie Kirk, we have the lawsuit. Brian Harpole is now suing Candace Owens and Mitch Snow. I would imagine that that has everything to do with Mitch Snow appearing on Candace Owens' show and saying that he saw Brian Harpole on Fort Huachuca, that he saw Erica Kirk in the lobby of the Candlewood Inn and Suites on September 8th, 2 days before Charlie Kirk was murdered in broad daylight in front of 3,000 people in live attendance, in front of the entire world on live stream. We are told by Tyler Robinson, who stole his grandfather's 30-06, and shot Charlie Kirk in his strong Superman-like neck bones of steel, which is why there was no exit wound. And then Tyler Robinson went on the lam, completely undetected in broad daylight, was able to achieve the tactical position on top of that roof. I don't know if he scaled it like he was Spider-Man. At one point he changed clothes on the top of that roof, or so we're told. That's changed multiple times as well, that there was some sort of a firearm assembly and breakdown process that happened after taking the single shot as the cross-eyed marksman sniper that he is. And then he carefully placed all of the evidence on Palantir property while evading law enforcement that was looking for him in what we were told was a massive manhunt. And he lovingly and in bubble paper wrapped all of the evidence that would be needed to lead to his arrest and ultimately to put him on trial and convict him of the murder of Charlie Kirk. And that was found, again, on Palantir property.
Yep,
and he was so nervous and he was so distraught. Or maybe he was so cool and calm and collected because he's just a cold-blooded, transgender-loving, furry-loving assassin. A lone wolf, cold-blooded, methodical, precision, cross-eyed marksman sniper who hadn't trained for this at all, but that's fine. And he was either so cool, calm, and collected, or he was so distraught, one of the two, that he needed a hot eat or a cool treat. So he found himself at a Dairy Queen. And of course, law enforcement is looking for him everywhere. They're combing the area looking for Tyler Robinson. And then he decided, well, I've had enough of this. I'm going to confess to this crime in paragraph form by sending text messages to my transgender furry lover. Who?
Yeah, this is the story they want you to
believe. We don't know if this person actually exists. But nevertheless, Tyler Robinson confessed to this transgender furry lover of his in paragraph form, written like a boomer cop. And then when that wasn't enough to get everything off of his chest, he went and confessed to his father and to an unknown minister and to a U.S. Marshal, and then turned himself in to the local sheriff. There's no video footage of that.
Isn't that sinister? He called on a minister?
Or something. It was destroyed. There was a technical problem. I don't know. The sheriff doesn't have the footage of Tyler Robinson walking into the sheriff's office to turn himself in for the assassination, for the high-profile murder of Charlie Kirk. Didn't get that on video. There's no video of that. chair of which has since unexpectedly and suddenly retired or resigned. And then Tyler Robinson, of course, was put in jail, where he's now on trial for the murder of Charlie Kirk. And so that story obviously ties directly back to America's relationship with Israel, because at the center of motive when it comes to the murder of Charlie Kirk, there's Charlie Kirk on video, documented in verified, authentic text messages that were sent to people that he knew, people inside of his organization, people that he trusted, that he was going to be forced to leave the pro-Israel cause that he had spent his entire life supporting and shilling for. He shilled for Israel every day, all day long, until he didn't. And this is documented. We have watched video after video
don't
of
you
Charlie
dare
Kirk
leave
having
those
a
Israelis.
real-time, real-life awakening of sorts about the relationship between America and Israel. And he wasn't just talking about, Israel's government or the right-wing Netanyahu regime. He specifically named secular Jews as being the problem for what he referred to on his podcast as a problem for our country, and he was pointing out the multifaceted occupation of our country. He was talking about banking and finance. He was talking about Hollywood. He was talking about academia. He was talking about our government, our federal bureaucracy.
Oh, no, he said too much.
He was talking about secular Jews as being the driving force behind the neoliberal Marxist ideologies that have permeated our country and the problems that have been caused as a result of, and the suffering and the pain and the death and the economic disastrous policies domestically, our foreign policy. He objected to Iran. He objected to any kind of kinetic confrontation with Iran. He did that publicly. He did that privately with the president. We are told that he was shouted down by Trump. And so there was a problem, and it becomes an even bigger problem when you consider the fact that Charlie Kirk was directly tied to defense contractors that are massive players in the trillions of dollars in racket that war has been over the decades. And a direct threat to, exposing to an engaged audience of Zoomers, millions of college-aged young people that represent the political and military future of our country, who Charlie Kirk was engaging with in person on college campuses all over the place, and who would leave the pro-Israel cause right along with him had he had the opportunity to be in front of them and explain why he was leaving the pro-Israel cause. That was a problem for the profiteers of war. That was a problem for defense contractors. It was a problem for the Trump administration, who was purchased by the Adelsons and by AIPAC to the tune of $230-some-odd million. At least publicly, that's what we see. And that's just through AIPAC, and that's just through Sheldon Adelson and his widow, Miriam Adelson.
There is a point to all
who
this.
In the last Trump election cycle contributed $100 million. She bought the White House for Donald Trump because Donald Trump is willing to do the things that the expansionist, Talmudist, Eastern European chosen people have to accomplish along the way to the conquest of Greater Israel. And this is their stated objective. This isn't a Stu Peters conspiracy theory. This is the stated objective. These people wear the map of Greater Israel on the sleeves of their uniforms. They bring the map of Greater Israel to meetings in Washington, D.C., at the White House and in the Situation Room and in conference meetings with Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, who's LARPing as the Secretary of War. And these are the people, these are the psychopaths who allegedly are in possession of the levers of power and the buttons that control civilization-ending weapons that they are talking openly about using, ending the lives of entire civilizations. And again, I'm not saying any of this to be hyperbolic. None of this is hyperbole. All of this is on the record, coming from Donald Trump and members of his cabinet and members of his administration. All of these things are documented. These are the things that they are saying.
The least the flock shall draw them out.
Civilization-ending weapons.
Shall make your habitations desolate because of them.
Charlie Kirk, because war is a racket and defense contractors have to get paid. They have contracts, millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billions of dollars. That's what's on the line for the people that have to have, that love, that need, that desire, that crave the shekels. They have to have the money and the power and the control. And all of that is on the line. And right there, directly connected to the military-industrial complex and its top-performing defense contractors, you have Charlie Kirk, who spent virtually his entire adult life shilling the relationship between America and Israel, supporting the relationship between America and Israel. He grabbed his pom-poms every day and cheered for the Judeo-Christian tribe. That's what he did. The pro-Israel cause. every single day until he didn't. And that was a direct threat that was posed to the military-industrial complex, to the ambitions of the people who are controlling our military, to the people who have openly stated that their goal is the conquest of Greater Israel, and who have said repeatedly that they will kill or displace anyone who gets in the way. They will silence anyone who gets in the way. How many journalists has Israel killed now?
Yeah.
And there's Charlie Kirk, directly connected to Lori Franzwey. He was her son-in-law. She builds, she dreams up, she concocts, she manufactures, she distributes the weapons of war of the future. And her son-in-law has suddenly become anti-war with Iran, anti-intervention in Venezuela, anti-anything that's not America first. And he was saying all of that on the record. And he was saying that secular Jews are to blame for all of this, and that we shouldn't be going to war with Iran for Israel. Because the writing was on the wall.
Zionism.
That's the only reason that we would go to war with Iran. Why would we go to war with Iran? They can't strike our country. Now, over the Strait of Hormuz, the Strait was wide open before a surprise attack that was launched by Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth, or whoever made that decision. While diplomatic negotiations, we are told, were occurring between the United States and Iran to keep us out of a war. And Charlie would have been talking about all of these things very publicly in front of millions of college-aged Zoomers who represent the military and political future of this country. And when he said that he was leading the pro-Israel cause, they would have left right along with him. That was a big problem. And so when you consider the pipeline, the people who are in the pipeline for positions of power moving into the future as this thing escalates, as we sit at the edge of a cliff, they have to do something about that. They have to do something about that. And Lori Franzwey works on Fort Huachuca. And the 10th Mountain Division is based on Fort Huachuca. The JTF Southern Task Force, they're on Fort Huachuca. Pete Hegseth's plane, the plane that he primarily uses, is on Fort Huachuca 2 days before Charlie Kirk is murdered. And we've been very open about all of the evidence that suggests that we believe this is a high-level military operation that we're looking at here that took out Charlie Kirk. And the weapon that I believe was used contained explosives that I believe were manufactured at AES, Accurate Energetic Solutions, in eastern Tennessee. And a month after Charlie Kirk was killed, a couple of things happened. The plane that Pete Hegseth normally uses, tail number 99-0404, was on another special air mission, another SAM flight, which again, can only be authorized and directed or ordered by the Vice President of the United States or the President of the United States, and can only be classified a SAM call sign, can only be given a special air mission call sign if the people on board are carrying out the business of or delivering or receiving a message on behalf of the President or the Vice President of the United States. And 30 days to the day after Charlie Kirk was killed on October 10th, that plane, the plane that's primarily used by Pete Hegseth, was on a special air mission with a SAM call sign assigned to it and flew from Joint Base Andrews back to Fort Huachuca. Well, on that day, the entire 10th Mountain Division was fired. And not only were they fired, but they were fired just months after the entire unit received the division promotion. The entire division received the promotion. These promotions typically come with perks like, new flags and new status and new uniforms and new technology, new buildings, new equipment, new aircraft. Tens or hundreds of millions of dollars gets poured into these promotions. And in this case, the 10th Mountain Division was given Command HQ status, only to then, just months later, on October 10th, be completely disbanded with all of these people being fired. Entire military divisions, especially those who have been recently promoted and just received all of that money and equipment and technology and aircraft and buildings, even new unit flags and given command status, are not just fired and disbanded willy-nilly, without acknowledgement, without letters of commendation, without medals, parades, ceremonies, speeches. It's a whole big spectacle when this happens.
Don't worry, he's going somewhere with it.
This was just done quietly, without any kind of announcement. And then, that status, that promotion, and all of the perks that came along with it were just handed over along with the JTF Southern Border responsibilities to the 10th Mountain Division's rival, the 110th Airborne. Longtime rival. Keep in mind, the 10th Mountain Division had been responsible for the JTF Southern Border Task Force responsibilities for decades. The mission may have been changed or adjusted here or there, but the personnel and that all stayed the same. The personnel always stayed the same. The command always stayed the same. Until 30 days to the day after Charlie Kirk was murdered, when they were all fired.
So, get that, though, leading up to the current fake shit, right? So we got to get it to the fake shit. So here we go.
Injured, although that was reportedly caused by friendly fire. And in the aftermath of all of that, Donald Trump has been credited with surviving yet another assassination attempt, and Fox News war correspondent Trey Yingst has emerged as a star of the show. And so now Fox News and Trey Yingst himself have been trying to sell the official White House narrative by telling their boomer audience members that Trey Yingst was there, he saw it all, and everybody can believe everything that Trey Yingst tells them. But there's a problem with that. We talked about it just the other day. Fox News very obviously had knowledge of this event, and that includes Trey Yingst. We played footage of Trey Yingst on Friday in an interview with Jimmy Fallon on the red carpet, and now we have more footage to add. And you can see what he was doing there. He was telling a canine handler where to go. And again, this is the same canine handler who encountered the shooter just moments later. So just moments after, what I see on video is Trey Yingst directing this canine handler, calling him over, ushering him out of the frame, and then going back and talking to that black guy who appears to be Secret Service, as far as I can tell. He's not somebody who's being photographed on the red carpet. This is a member of a security detail of some sort, but to me it looks like this black guy is Secret Service. So Trey Yingst runs over, grabs this canine handler. Now, again, I'm just recounting, I'm not speculating here, I'm just talking about what I can see with my eyes. Okay? Trey Yingst is running over here, he's grabbing this canine handler, he's ushering the canine handler along.
Sounds like the game of Clue, doesn't it?
And then he goes and talks to another Secret Service agent before going to greet Sandra Smith on the red carpet, who was just photographed. It was just moments after that that canine handler was in the immediate proximity of who we are told was a shooter that was there to assassinate Donald Trump and kill all of these members of his cabinet, minus Kash Patel. So it's pretty obvious to me that Trey Yingst was telling this person where to go. You can see him physically escorting the canine handler into position. And then again, that canine handler and that dog would be in front of that wide open doorway that we saw this person, we are told, is somebody called Cole Thomas Allen, a 31-year-old teacher from Torrance, California. We're told that that is the shooter. We can see him. We can see that guy going through the wide open door. And immediately behind him is that same canine handler that Trey Yingst just moments before was directing to go that way. And it looks like there's contact between the canine handler and Cole Thomas Allen. It looks like they're talking, or at least, I mean, definitely the dog. I am a canine handler. I'm a certified canine handler. The dog hit on that guy. The dog hit on this Cole Thomas Allen twice. The canine handler, after being right there looking through a wide open door into a room where this guy literally just walked into, apparently without any kind of a shotgun. I don't see one anyway. It's not obvious that he's armed, but we're told that he is. So maybe it's under the long black jacket. I don't know. You know, the trench coat mafia looking type jacket. Maybe it's under that. But it was literally immediately after he walked through, Cole Thomas Allen walked through that door, that here comes the canine handler after being directed by Trey Yingst on the red carpet. There he is, making contact in some way, shape, or form with Cole Thomas Allen. Looking at him, talking to him, dog hitting on him twice. But then he pulls the dog away. And that's when Cole Thomas Allen, immediately after that, comes bursting right back out of the door that he walked into, this time with what Janine Pirro says is a Mossberg foldable 12-gauge shotgun. You know, pulled up as he bursts out of there and runs toward, I guess, wherever he thought Donald Trump and his cabinet may be. Well, according to Trey Yingst, he was just shaking hands. He saw somebody from the red carpet, somebody that he knew that was photographing the red carpet, and he was just shaking their hands. Okay, well, here's the deal. We just watched that video together. We just saw the video. Trey Yingst goes running in a very excited, very urgent, very flamboyant, almost homosexual type of way off of the red carpet in the direction of where the canine handler emerges in the frame. And we can see Trey Yingst's right hand the entire time. You know, the hand that everybody on earth extends when they're going to shake somebody's hand. And there was no handshaking going on here, at least not in the universally accepted way of properly shaking hands. because Trey Yank's right hand, again, you can see the entire time, it never leaves the frame, and there was no handshaking going on there, okay? So he must be talking about this as handshaking. He must be talking about this as shaking hands. That's how Trey Yanks, apparently maybe customary Jewish tradition, I don't know. If there are any Jews in our audience, could you just tell us, is this how Jews shake hands? Is this how Jewish people do it? And so he ran very excitedly, again, kind of in this really flamboyant and urgent way. He goes running in this direction to shake hands. And if you don't believe that, according to Trey Yanks, you are peddling ridiculous conspiracy theories. That's what he said when he replied to my post, which included that video that we just watched together on X. And then, to help really drive the narrative home, X deployed an AI-written community note, which was later taken down, by the way, saying, no, this isn't true. Trey Yanks was not directing the canine handler. He was shaking hands with friends. And we know this to be true because that's what Trey Yanks has explained in his reply to your post. Trey Yanks wasn't telling anyone where to go. He was simply trying to shake hands with his friends. And that's all indisputably true because Trey Yanks said so. Trey Yanks is the arbiter of reality, according to X and its AI community note writers. Trey Yanks is the arbiter of reality. He explained this, a reality that, by the way, is bound to change because this Trump administration just keeps on flipping their narrative upside down by sending out absolute idiots to talk about all of the different ways that members of federal law enforcement, like the canine cop that Trey Yanks guided into position, just let the so-called shooter infiltrate the correspondence dinner. Clip number 3, roll it.
In the surveillance video that you posted on social media, we see this officer with a canine.
You can see it's obviously fake.
They just walked through. The police dog seemed to have an idea that something was on the other end of that door.
That's right.
The officer tugs him back. I'm not finding fault with the officer. But then seconds later, they walk away.
Hold on a second here real quick. Just hold on. He said he's not finding fault with the officer because he doesn't know the first thing about being a canine handler. He has no experience with this. Again, I am a certified canine handler. I can speak to these things from an educated position. That dog indicated on that guy twice. Not once, twice. That dog hit on that guy twice, indicating to that officer, to that handler, twice, there's something going on with this guy. Now, the President of the United States is in the building. There should have been an immediate interdiction. This guy should have, at minimum, been questioned. He should have certainly been stopped, at minimum questioned, likely detained during that questioning, and searched. When a certified canine dog hits on somebody, a detection dog, like we're told this one is, a single-purpose detection dog, when it hits on a person, that establishes probable cause. So at that point, that person lawfully can be detained pending further investigation. The President of the United States is there. That person should have immediately been detained. Now, these single-purpose dogs, they say, well, I guess it was just a bomb dog. A lot of people have said that. As a matter of fact, I think later on in this clip number 3, they may say this. Well, this is just a bomb dog. It's just a bomb dog. Okay. Bomb dogs fall under the classification of EOD dogs. I had a dual-purpose canine that was certified PD1, which is like patrol operations, apprehension, bite work, tracking, that kind of thing, handler protection. And then there's also EOD certified dogs. These dogs are a lot more expensive. Training is a lot more extensive. And so Felon, my most recent dog, was an EOD certified bomb dog. Well, that's how they refer to these dogs in short. That's a bomb dog. It's an EOD detection dog. That's multifaceted. So let me just explain. For example, just before I got out of bounty hunting, there was a suspect that was standing at a bus stop that Metro Transit Police had a warrant for. We also shared a warrant for that suspect. We pulled up at a stop sign at the very exact same time that from the other way, the Transit Police pulled up as well. I observed, Richard, my partner, observed, and I would imagine, I guess, based on my observation, that the transit squad cops saw this guy too. He was wanted on some really serious violent warrants, crimes against persons. He was wanted. And so this guy took a look at myself and Richard in a Tahoe with blacked out windows, looked over the other way, saw the transit cop looking at him, and decided, I better run. And so he had a backpack on and he took off running. There was a foot chase. Richard bailed and was chasing on foot. I moved to try to get ahead of this guy because I had a dual-purpose canine dog. And so I wanted to get ahead of this guy, have the dog out, give canine warnings. If you don't stop, this dog is coming for you. Normally, the presence of the dog neutralizes the situation. You can point a gun at a guy all day long. He knows you're not going to shoot him unless he shoots at you first. And even then, you're probably likely not going to shoot because your administration is occupied. You can point a gun at a guy. You can point a taser at a guy. You can do whatever you want. They do not care. They have no regard for the law. They will run. They will flee. And cops aren't going to shoot a fleeing suspect in the back under most circumstances. There are, of course, exceptions, like the imminent threat of great bodily harm or death, and the guy's armed and he's demonstrated that he's going to just kill people as he's running. That that would justify the use of deadly force to stop that behavior. But anyway, I had moved to get in front of this fleeing suspect, and when he jumped over the fence that I predicted that he was going to jump over, there I was with the dog. I gave the canine warnings. The guy went down on his face. It was just seconds later that Richard caught up. Multiple Minneapolis police squads and transit police squads showed up. He was taken into custody. Well, he didn't have a backpack then. There was an indication, there was probable cause or reasonable suspicion to believe that this guy was armed and that he had a gun in that backpack because previously he was on CCTV footage somewhere else putting a gun in the backpack that he was wearing when he fled, when he took off. So the backpack was really important. And the transit cops asked, hey, would your dog be able to find the gun? And I said, yes, because my dog does EOD stuff. Now, a regular PD1 dog should be able to find that backpack because part of being a patrol dog without the EOD stuff is article searches, that the dog is able to go and find the backpack based on the track that was left by the fleeing suspect. However, in the case of an EOD dog, not only they don't just do bombs, not only that, but they also do bomb-making material or a combination thereof. So as a matter of fact, if they smell something like gunpowder combined with PVC, those are bomb-making components. The dog's going to hit on that. If the dog just smells gunpowder, the dog's going to hit on that. If the dog smells a spent shell casing, the dog's going to hit on that. And typically EOD dogs, rather than like barking and being violent or trying to get at the device, they will indicate quietly and silently, and they're trained that way on purpose because you don't want a bomb dog running up on a suspicious package that you think may explode if it's disturbed. You don't want a dog disturbing the package in the middle of Times Square or at an airport somewhere or at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. So you would typically have a dog that indicates quietly by laying down. There's a few different variations of hits. But this dog was absolutely interested in this guy. And if that's a bomb dog, don't let that, make you believe that this dog is not qualified or certified or trained or is an expert in detecting a shotgun or a weapon that has deployed or is loaded with explosive ordnance or something with gunpowder in it. The dog can smell bullets that haven't been fired yet, unspent cartridges. It can detect spent cartridges. It can detect bomb-making materials, as I said. It can detect firearms, as I said. The reason that the dog was hitting on this guy, that this dog was indicating that there was something going on with this person that we're told is Cole Thomas Allen, is because there was something going on. And the handler knows that. And this dog didn't just hit once, but this dog indicated there was something going on with Cole Thomas Allen twice. So yes, there is blame to be placed on this particular canine handler, whether this is a private security contractor, a federal agent, I don't know. But this handler, who should be certified with his maybe single purpose, maybe dual purpose, but with his detection dog, because we're told, I believe somewhere in this clip that this is a bomb dog, was indicating there's something going on with Cole Thomas Allen. And despite that, this handler pulls this dog away. All right, you can play the clip again.
Tugs him back. I'm not finding fault with the officer. But then seconds later, they walk away. The suspect runs out, charging through the dinner with a rifle in his hand. What exactly happened there, and what's on the other side of those doors?
Well, apparently the defendant, and we know that he had been casing the hotel while he was in the hotel.
How do we know that?
Video, and you will see that because we've been very transparent with the evidence.
Oh.
But he goes into that room to take off a long coat that he has on.
So that's a room?
That's a room, and he discards the coat. He's wearing a long dark coat because he has to hide the Mossberg pump action shotgun. And he takes the coat off. As soon as he does, he comes out like a bat out of hell to start to approach what's going on there. You talk about the dog. I'm not an expert with dogs, but my understanding is that...
You got 4 dogs, though.
I do, and so you have many yourself. We were talking about that. This dog, as I understand it, is a bomb dog. It's a bomb detection dog. But as we get more information, we'll be clear. Again, it's a fluid situation.
Yeah.
So you get the general idea what a bomb dog is, to say the least. And now you understand the reason why he can tell you such in-depth stuff is because he was a bounty hunter at one time. He done some law enforcement work, works with dogs, etc. Right? So you now know that with explicit details, like we do when we go into scriptures, precept upon precept, why this is a staged event, why this was allowed to happen, because anybody who handles the dogs in that department knows exactly what they're used for. Was told to go ahead and let him go, so they could do this whole event. That's the whole case in point there. False flag fail. Caught directing K9 and staged assassination hoax. See? And he just gave you all the details of it. Why this is definitely staged. Makes total sense, right? Salakia for how long that was, but, hey man, sometimes you just got to go into detail, and that's why at the final conclusion the whole thing was staged, just like we said it was. Sometimes we don't need it, but sometimes it's good to go upon, all right, why this is a staged event. You know, kind of like the game of Clue, right? You know, you have to rewind everything. You have to figure it out. You know, I just recently watched the movie, so you got to figure out exactly what had happened and why it happened, etc. Well, that's what he's doing there. And that's what we do when we go into why the MOTB has to come first before the war is fully launches, right? You know, that is that last hour, you know, when Babylon the Great is destroyed, because that's a consequence of getting the MOTB, which is going to emerge through all this. Wars and rumors of wars, famines, pestilence, earthquakes, diverse places, just like the scriptures that were just read, you know, because everything is in stages, but that's what will be taking place just right before the return of Yahweh Shai. But the MOTB will be mandated worldwide, and then the final hour will happen. We're seeing it in real time. So, you know, this is also a false flag, right? Because Iran has responded since the previous video, right? Attack on United Arab Emirates oil facility, result of U.S. adventurism in the Strait. Iran media reported on Monday that the attack on oil facilities in the United Arab Emirates port was the result of U.S. adventurism in the Strait. Iran had no pre-planned intention to attack the oil facilities, Iranian military official told Iranian broadcaster. So, no, Iran did not engage. United Arab Emirates said that its air defenses engaged 19 Iranian missiles and drones on Monday, according to sources speaking to CNN. Israeli drone system that was secretly deployed to the Gulf Arab state was used to intercept projectiles. At least 3 people, Indian nations, were injured by the attacks on the Fallujah oil facilities. So, like everything else, so they're blaming it on Iran. Comments suggest the strikes of the Fallujah facilities were Iran's response to the U.S. Navy's new attempt to get commercial ships out of the Strait. Though, so far, that's been no official comment from Tehran about the attacks. Alright, so Iran has not officially said that, yeah, they did it. But there is this. Iranian Navy said it fired missiles and drones at U.S. warships, and CENTCOM also claimed that its forces destroyed 6 Iranian boats, which was denied by Iranian officials. Attacks on United Arab Emirates would mark Tehran's most significant response yet to U.S. military escalation since the ceasefire ended the U.S.-Israeli bombing campaign, but they got to start a new war. Iranian analyst tells me Tehran's warning shots at U.S. warships and the strikes on the United Arab Emirates reveals Iran's new posture. If Trump plans to restart the war, Iran will not wait for Trump to do it before it retaliates. It will strike preemptively in a measured way to deter Trump. So, that means that they're going to be on the offense, not just defense. That's what's going to be different this time. So, yeah, most likely is because of the fact that, alright, you've already entered into here. We're going to go ahead and preemptively strike this to let you know that any attempts will be met. U.S. Navy destroys transit Hormuz Strait as Iranian factions reportedly clash over United Arab Emirates attacks. Pentagon insists ceasefire is still on. So they're still trying to claim a ceasefire, even though you can see that very much so. We're back in the war. Pentagon addresses whether ceasefire over are violated. KN says Iran's military operations were all below the threshold of restarting major combat operations at this point. Contradictory statements out of Tehran on United Arab Emirates attack amid reports of division between IRGC and civilian leaders. We know there's no division there, but they're trying to give you the illusion that, well, this person's in charge, this person's in charge. No, there's no division within that. Not like there is in the U.S. U.S. bombast of Strait safe corridor smacks of desperation to end an unwinnable war. It's a war they will not win. But they're calling it Project Freedom, so, you know, getting rid of Operation Epstein Fury, but now Project Freedom. Social Post on Sunday, President Trump announced the U.S. would begin freeing merchant ships stranded in the Strait, calling it Project Freedom and framing it as a humanitarian gesture. The bombast to create a safe corridor through the strategic highway firmly under the control of Iran is by no measure a sign of strength or authority. It is a symptom of distress and alarm that Americans are increasingly grappling with. What is becoming increasingly clear is that the U.S. is in a rush because time has become its worst enemy. Iran, by contrast, stands resolute and confident as it holds all the cards. So, like everything else, though, you know, they really want to exit, and the only way to do that is to find an end to this war. Well, it's not that easy, because that's not what the Israelis want. U.S. aims to destroy Iran's future. America strikes deliberately targeted civilian medical and educational sites. U.S.-Israeli bombings of Iranian fertility clinics, hospitals, schools, and universities were aimed at destroying Iran's future. U.S. President Trump has claimed that one of the core goals of the war against Iran was to liberate it from its government. He also claimed the country was left in a state of collapse after the U.S. strikes, which, like everything else, though, he said was fun. You know, he did this just for the fun of doing it. It's clear that Iran maintains control over the Strait. Nothing goes in and out without any approval from the IRGC's Navy, he said, calling reports on Iranian forces firing on the U.S. Navy on Monday. D.C.'s denial that a U.S. ship was fired upon should be taken with a whole bag of salt, he added. So, like everything else, though, well, we'll just play this.
All right, let's take this conversation much further here on RT International. Christopher Halali is with us, a journalist at DD Geopolitics, also a man who's just back from the Persian Gulf region himself. Chris, great to get you on the program. A very warm welcome to you today.
Thank you very much for having me again.
Listen, mate, we've got to just kick off with this breaking news story. We just got about, I don't know, less than 2 hours ago, reports that 2 missiles struck a U.S. Navy boat after it reportedly ignored Iranian warnings near the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. Navy boat has been forced to retreat. And now the U.S. Central Command is denying all of these reports. I know it's a developing story, but what do you think is going on?
Certainly, having just come back from the Strait of Hormuz and having gone out on a boat and seeing all of the traffic out there, what's going on, and the Iranian Sepah Navy, it's clear that Iran maintains control over the entire Strait of Hormuz. Nothing goes in and out without approval from the IRGC's Navy. So in this case, it's clear that if the United States tries to go, which is the claim today, that a U.S. vessel tried to breach the area of control of the IRGC's Navy and was then it came under fire for disobeying, that's totally plausible. Yeah. Of course, the CENTCOM, the U.S. Central Command, has denied previous reports that have also turned out to be true. Yeah. So I think that we should take that with not a grain of salt, but a whole bag of salt, because it's clear that the U.S. is trying to do damage control on the fact that it is really facing a formidable enemy at this point.
It's no surprise that Washington...
Yeah, exactly. A formidable enemy that they cannot defeat. U.S. attacks civilian cargo boats headed to Iran shores, killing 5 on board. So, like everything else, though, more piracy over there, as well as you already know what's going on in South America, right? The U.S. has attacked 2 civilian cargo boats heading from the Omani coast to the Iranian shoreline, claiming the lives of at least 5 people on board. This is definitely a violation of ceasefire, if you believe that there was a ceasefire. There never really was. It just, you know, kind of pretended to make negotiations, then said that they were impossible. That Iran asked the impossible. It's like, well, how's that impossible? They just want an end to the war. Oh, because you don't want to end the war. Source, meanwhile, refuted the U.S. claims of having targeted speedboats belonging to the IRGC, saying instead of targeting IRGC speedboats, the U.S., in a blatant crime, opened fire on 2 small boats carrying civilian goods. So, yeah. Well, you already know the history of Trump. He's good at that because it's fun. He says it's a lot of fun. So, like everything else, though, the war is on.
Hey everybody, Josh Surton of World Alternative Media here, and as expected, the so-called ceasefire has fallen through with Iran as we see strikes hit the news today. U.S. Israel to attack Iran within 24 hours, says CNN. As I wrote on X at World Alt Media, every single time there is a fake ceasefire, I'm called black-pilled when I point out it is obviously not over. Then, here we go again. Yes, because the 7-country plan doesn't fail overnight. They've been working on this for decades. This is all manufactured. U.S. forces sink 6 Iranian small boats as Trump warns regime will be blown off the face of the earth. as we see these alleged attacks on the United Arab Emirates, as the UAE threatens a military response after Iran missile attack results in injuries, fire at key oil site. But there's so much more to this, as I've said before. I'm going to start from the beginning of what has happened today to the end and to the context. Before we get into that, though, my friends, of course, they're going further throughout. The whole idea of all of this is to bring in that reset system of food rations, technocracy, all that kind of stuff. The manufactured shift from the west to the east always ends in control, order out of chaos. This is why it's so incredibly important, especially with the destruction of trade. The servings are beating out iron, my friends, but with not the face of the earth. And there is a procession of things that happened today that has led to this rhetoric and this escalation, which was obviously bound to happen. So let's look at exactly what is going on here as the UAE is threatening military response right after joining or leaving OPEC to support the U.S. as Saudi Arabia leaves for BRICS, and UAE is in BRICS. It's all one big manufactured game. It's a game of cat and mouse that is absolutely manufactured. But it started with this. So we have, from quite a few hours ago, more U.S. ships are heading through the Strait of Hormuz. Iran declared it a red line, said it fired on ships that tried to enter quietly. The U.S. just announced it's sending more through anyway. This is after we've already seen Israel and the United States saying that they were about to attack anyway. Just a couple days ago, I reported on it. Israel said that you must attack. They demanded more attacks. This is not over, they said, in their push for the Greater Israel Project and the seven-country plan. So Trump had recently said on Fox News, if Iran attacks U.S. ships guiding vessels through the Strait of Hormuz, Iran will be blown off the face of the earth. This is no longer a ceasefire situation. So obviously we have Iran saying, do not send ships through. And then Trump says, we're going to send ships through. Then the U.S. sank 6 Iranian boats in the Gulf. Tasnim News, quoting senior Iranian military, denies the claim. It looks like the war has been resumed again out of Al Jazeera. Again, they attacked 6 Iranian boats allegedly. The Iranian government responded, says, they have not done anything. Like, of course, the claim is that they went after, as this U.S. admiral has just confirmed, Iran's Revolutionary Guard Navy has been targeting commercial and U.S. military ships with cruise missiles, which Iran is denying. And that they say that Iran is flatly denying also the U.S. claim of sinking Iranian warships in the Persian Gulf. In the Gulf, that the gap between stories is where wars have started before. And again, this reminds me very much, and I've been saying this for years, wars seem to start on water, of the Gulf of Tonkin incident. Yeah. And of course, what we know led into the war with Vietnam, and among many things, of course, the arming and funding of the Vietnamese by FDR's administration, and then of course Eisenhower, and then more so Kennedy, and then even more so LBJ's introduction of troops in the region. But then also the Lusitania in World War I. We have Pearl Harbor, World War II. And we had the Gulf of Oman incident quite a few years ago, which also led to massive escalations with Iran. It always seems to start in the water. And what we're seeing right now is, okay, Iran says don't enter the Strait. The United States enters the Strait, sinks 6 Iranian boats. Iran says that they have not been hit. Then the U.S. says they have not been hit, despite Iran claiming that they attacked U.S. ships with cruise missiles in the region, according to an admiral. The narrative is all over the place. Everyone is saying something different. But we know that this seems to be all happening on the water. It always does, and there's less cell phones in the middle of a strait, or in the middle of the ocean, or in the middle of a gulf than there would be on the ground, when we would more likely see more evidence of what they are claiming. Again, we keep hearing things about these U.S. warships being attacked, and then there's no evidence of it, and then they say it didn't happen, but then Iran says it did, and then other times the U.S. says, oh, well, Iran did attack us, and Iran says, no, we didn't. It's exhausting. It's exhausting because we don't know the truth of what's happening there. We just know what the agenda is overall. The overarching agenda has been clear for some time. So this back and forth is very annoying, very annoying. But all the same, Trump says Iran just made a big mistake, the biggest mistake in its history. The last time Trump said something like this, U.S. and Israeli strikes on Iran began within hours. And of course, CENTCOM is out with a direct denial after Iranian state media claimed the IRGC struck a U.S. warship with 2 missiles. No U.S. ship was hit, they say. Forces are actively supporting Project Freedom and enforcing the maritime blockade of Iranian ports. Iran needed a win, so they invented one. So that is the claim from CENTCOM, the Farsi-speaking CENTCOM. But again, it's so convoluted. What we know is this. The United Arab Emirates is strongly condemning an attack from Iran tonight. They also state they have the full and legitimate right to respond to these attacks. The UAE has been absorbing Iranian strikes since February 28th. 537 ballistic missiles, 2,256 drones, 26 cruise missiles intercepted since the war began. Well, I should point out that Iran is denying that they've done this, but the UAE says it has a full and legitimate right to respond to Iranian attacks. A lot of people claiming this is an Israeli false flag. Syria, which has been taken over by Israel recently, with al-Jawani, also known as al-Shara, who is an al-Qaeda kingpin. Syria just condemned Iran for attacking a UAE tanker in the Strait of Hormuz. Syria joined Jordan, Egypt, the Arab Parliament, and the GCC in denouncing the Iranian drone strike on the ADNOC vessel. The Arab world is sending a message: regional stability now beats old alliances. Now, Syria isn't really an old alliance anymore because it's not Assad. Assad isn't running the country. They took it over exactly as CIA papers from 1983 called Bringing Arms to Bear in Syria, as I reported in 2018 initially, said. It said that they would intervene and they would enter the country through the same countries that ended up being the case in, back in the beginning of 2025. Overthrow Assad. At that time it was Assad Sr., but the plan got carried out nonetheless with Assad Jr. Take over the country, hand it to an Israeli-friendly rebel group, which, again, Al-Qaeda, Taliban, Mujahideen, Muslim Brotherhood, all these guys, ISIS, they all work with Israel. They all get weapons from Israel. We all know the history of this. And again, Syria gets taken over, immediately starts persecuting and torturing Christians and Sunnis, and, of course, persecuting Alawites. So, exactly as a CIA document claims. Now, I've been warning about the Israeli takeover of Syria for a long time. Now Syria's been taken over. Now there's still attacks on it. Now there's a takeover of the country by Israeli forces, essentially, as the new Syrian government praises Israel and calls out Palestine and says that Palestine should surrender to Israel. I mean, absolutely insane stuff. Gee, I wonder who's running them. And then we move into this. Now they're calling out Iran and saying, how dare Iran attack the United Arab Emirates? Well, it's interesting because we have, Israeli Broadcasting Authority, the Israeli military has been placed on high alert. We have Bahrain declaring a national state of emergency tonight, and an Israeli air defense system was deployed to the UAE. It was reportedly used today to intercept an incoming Iranian missile, and this is according to them. So again, there's Israeli air defense in the area of the UAE. They're surrounding the United Arab Emirates a week after the United Arab Emirates leaves OPEC in favor of the U.S. And then they say that there was an attack on the UAE by Iran, and all these Israeli proxies are attacking and calling out Iran now. This sounds like a false flag. They literally said in Israel and in Israeli parliament, if any attacks are ever done by Iran during the ceasefire, then we will go after them and we will destroy them. Now, as I had previously reported in a video a couple days ago, we have the defense minister, Cates, in Israel, demanding that there will be more strikes on Iran, saying we need to continue attacking Iran. Israeli Defense Minister Cates has said in a Thursday briefing, it is possible that soon we will need to act again in Iran to ensure that the regime cannot threaten Israel for years to come, according to a local reporter. And he has said that we need to, it's necessary to go after Iran. Again, who is controlling the U.S. government and the international military apparatus?
The least the flock shall draw them out, shall make their habitations desolate because of them, right? So you see that play out, and you see that the Israeli state totally controls Syria, totally controls Damascus, right? Smart borders, military gates, and land sieges, how the Israeli state has enroached in southern Syria. Report reveals Israeli systematic violations of the territory and how security has been used as a guise to grab land and resources. Well, that's what it's all about. And they got a new government loyal to them. On the 8th of December, 24 hours after the collapse of Bashar al-Assad, Israeli terrorists launched full-scale ground operation into Syria aimed at capturing the buffer zone between the two countries. Israeli military carried out at least 1,672 violations inside Syrian territory, which is everything up until now. Data shared with Middle East Eye revealed that Israeli violations in Syria escalated sharply following the latest U.S.-Israeli war against Iran, because they want to fortify Syria to use it as a launching pad. So, you see where we're at, right? And so, well, just leads us to the final scripture here, right? And we go to this one quite often. Okay, alright, there it is. I'm just going to bring it back in the old KJV. Because that's where we're at now, right? Jeremiah chapter 49 verse 20. Hear the counsel of the Most High Yahweh that he has taken against Edom and his purposes, that he has purposed against the inhabitants of Teman. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitations desolate because of them. So we all know how this war got started, who started it, and why. You're seeing all that now. And we know that it escalates with Damascus being destroyed and World War III itself. You know, the weapons of his indignation, you know, being launched from one side of the earth to the other, ultimately destroying Syria and Babylon. Because it said, woe be unto thee, Babylon and Asia, woe be unto thee, Syria and Egypt, right? So, it's all there. Or Babylon and Asia, yeah, Syria and Egypt. And we know who modern day Egypt is, Babylon the Great. So, that's how this war, you know, happens. And so, we, you know, are upon our watch, watching and seeing, as this is all in real time. Hopefully this has been edifying for anyone to say, Bracha the Yahweh, Bracha the Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem Rekakadash, Wa Abal Babal. Brakatam, Jehovah Elect, Shalom.